Coach David Buchanan. Coach Chuck Smith. Two legendary high school football coaches. This is the Coach's Office, a behind-the-scenes look at Kentucky high school football.
Welcome to the Coach's Office, behind the scenes with Chuck Smith and David Buchanan. This is off-season 3, episode 4. I'm Chuck Smith. I'm joined by co-host David Buchanan and podcast editor, flashback storyteller Mike Yoakum. Our YouTube version of this podcast is at TCOP, t.c.o.p. If you get on there and like it, hit like and subscribe. It helps us out. Our show tonight, we're really excited about. We're going to get into Arkansas high school football tonight. And we got a very successful, innovating, driven head football coach, Kenny Simpson, he's at Southside Charter High School, which is, I believe, in Batesville, Arkansas. Coach Simpson will be a great guest with a lot of innovating information. We'll bring Coach Simpson on here in just a second. David will, so be patient. Then we're going to address our tough topic. It's anonymous, and the question is new to coordinating. What are some pieces of advice for new coordinators? What is the head football coach looking for when he hires a coordinator? The do's and the don'ts. So that'll be a really good question for David and I to address. After our interview with Coach Simpson. So hang in there, hang tight. A little bit about Coach Simpson and his credentials before we get started, or before David brings him on. Coach Simpson, he's currently the head football coach at Southside Charter High School. He served as a head football coach for 3 different schools. He's been in 2 different states. He's had success in 2 different states. He was at Christian Academy in Alabama as a head football coach. He was at Southside Charter for 2 stints. One of them, he's in his second stint now, but he was there before. Then he went to, I believe, Searcy High School, which is a 6A football program in Arkansas. And then he's come back, and he's currently the head football coach at Southside Charter for the second time. He's been named the 4A2 Conference Coach of the Year in 2017, 2024. He was a finalist for the Hooten's Coach of the Year Award. He coached the Arkansas High School All-Star football game in 2023. I bet that was a lot of fun to do that. And then he also coached the first Texas-Arkansas All-Star Showdown in 2021. I bet that was also a blast. He wrote a book, Find a Way. What I wish I'd known when I became a head football coach. Pretty exciting. He did that in 2019. Maybe wrote some other books too, but that's the one that I saw. He runs the Gun T offensive system, which is run all over the world really, and had a lot of success with that. He's been featured, by a lot of, he's been featured or had a lot of interviews from different media outlets, including the USA Football, Titan Under, the Coaches Podcast, and now he can add the Coach's Office behind the scenes with Chuck Smith and David Buchanan to that list of people that have interviewed him and talked to him. David, you want to bring on Coach?
Yeah, I used to teach history, and there at the end in World Civ, we'd always talk about The World is Flat, the 21st Century. Coach Simpson, are you familiar with Thomas Friedman? I just took a shot there. But anyway, and really sort of also how talent was going to sort of rise to the top because of connectivity, And I think of you as a guest because, with social media, Twitter, and internet, man, you built a very successful business. That's how two high school coaches in Kentucky found you, is because of Twitter, and it's giving you a platform to show. I mean, you've got you're a very skilled football coach and also a very skilled business owner. So it's really cool because the world is flat. We got Kenny Simpson on tonight, and I'm really excited about that. Uh, and Chuck did a great job with your intro, but Coach, we could spend all night on your intro on the clinics you offer, your publications.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And hey, thank you so much. I know you're very busy. Thanks for making time for us tonight.
No, man, it's always cool to talk ball. Man, it's always fun, and it's always an honor to be on a podcast. And I'm glad you guys found me and looked me up and hit me up and making you stay up past your bedtime tonight. I appreciate you doing it.
Hey, you'll be old someday. You better watch it on those bedtime comments. Your day's coming, Coach. Your day's coming.
Yeah. Hey, Coach, let me get started here. I've got the first question up for you. Tell me about that gun tee offense. Why do you think it's been so successful?
Yeah, we kind of stumbled into it. That wasn't a goal of mine. I was a spread guy. Early on in Alabama, we had run the spread. I'm a big Tony Franklin fan. I still am a fan of his stuff. And we ran that in Montgomery and had some success. I was coach of the year. We won our conference. A lot of good stuff that happened. Well, then we moved to Arkansas, and just completely different demographics of our kids. We didn't have the guys on the edges that could really make it happen in the spread offense. I remember I had been a defensive coordinator early in my career, and I always hated going against the wing tee. Like, I hated going against it. Every time we go against it, it just was miserable trying to get ready for it. So I said, well, maybe we should run that. But I said, well, I don't really want to just sell out to the wing tee. Not that that's wrong. It's a good offense. I'd like to use some of the other knowledge that I've learned in the spread world. And with all the RPOs, we had really been pretty decent in the RPOs at Arkansas. Running the spread, I did that for about 3 or 4 years, and we were not very good. I was a young coach and had to be humbled. God tends to do that to you when you need it, and he definitely did for a couple of years there. So we had to find something, because my wife told me, we'd had a kid at every stop. New job, new kid, new job, new kid, and I don't get paid enough for that stuff. So we're going to have to stop moving and start winning. And so that was the conversation we had. So we wanted to blend the wing tee, the elements from the wing tee that everyone hates. Everyone hates stop and buck sweep, and double handoff is hard, and misdirection is difficult, and having a tight end wing surface is just kind of something you don't see. But we wanted to keep RPOs from the spread world. We wanted to keep some of the screen game from the spread world, and so we tried to make the best of both worlds, bring the spread offense in with the RPO world, and it's been a process. We started it in 2016. Actually, 2015 we put it in. 2016 we sold out to it, and man, we made the playoffs. The school I was at when I took the job had been 0-20 some odd. It had been like a 2.5-year losing streak. So it was a work in progress. I had contributed to that with an 0-10 season myself. So nobody's blameless. We had a long way to go. Well, 2016, we sell out to this. We make the playoffs. I'm like, man, maybe there's something here. Next year we go 10-2, and then we win the conference again. And you're starting to go, man, I think this actually is working. And then we put it out. 2020 COVID hits, and so we put out the gun tee kind of out for other people that might be interested in it. And anytime you do that, it's always nerve-wracking, because like, you put something out there and people pay money for it, and it sucks. You're gonna feel awful about that. So we put it out there, put our first playbook out, and then it went crazy. My wife and I were at home. We're trying to mail from the house, and we mailed out probably several thousand of these. I was like, wow. And we're looking at, you can see where you're mailing them. You're going, I think we've hit every state and we're hitting other countries. And I said, I really hope this works. It worked for us. I hope it works for other people. Well, now this year we had 38 schools that run the gun tee that I'm aware of have won a state championship in the U.S. at the high school level. I'm working with a couple college coaches that are using elements of what we run and getting to travel around and work with it. And it's been good. We all know as coaches, scheme is not just, that's not the end all be all. You got to have more than scheme. We all know that. But we also know that having good scheme gives you a chance. And that's kind of what I try to say with a gun tee is when you're not very good, you can slow it down and you can use the run game and you can use a little, kind of conservative formation type things. When you are good, we've been blessed to have some good athletes the last 2 or 3 years here at Southside. You can be really explosive. And I think that's why it works for most schools is you don't have to change your offense. You don't have to go, well, we're not going to be very good this year. Let's run this. We are going to be good. Let's run this. You can keep the same offense and adapt to your kids. That's my hope. I try to let guys that run it speak for themselves. But for us, that's what's been good for us.
Yeah, I watched some of your clips, on your website, and I thought you mixed that RPO in there with it, and which makes it really really tough. And then, but it was really effective for you. Now our listeners they can access some of these videos by getting on your YouTube account, or how can you tell them how they could possibly get to some of your information? Is it through you or what?
Yeah, they can go wherever they want to. I've tried to put it as many places as I could. So YouTube's free. So man, if I'm first time I'm listening, I'm going to look for free before I spend any money. So
Yeah.
go over to YouTube and check out. Just look up my name, Kenny Simpson. It ought to pull stuff up. Or if you put buck sweep or RPO, it's probably going to pull something up. Check it out on YouTube. We've got. Then I've got my own website, fbcoachsimpson.com. There's some free stuff on that, PowerPoints and just general information. And then if they want to get a book or they want to dig deeper, there are other resources there that are available.
Yeah.
Hey, so Coach, you're talking about your business and mailing your playbooks and your YouTube, and so how do you do this? How do you balance running a very successful business while being also a very successful head football coach? How are you making that go?
Man, there's a secret weapon I have, and she's in the office next door, and she's my wife. And so when people that know me well know Miss Jamie, like they know who she is. She's a graphic design major, and so she can obviously make my stuff look good, like you can see behind us. So she edits the books, she creates the covers. So that part's easy enough. She does a great job with that, but she also mails everything. She's our accountant. She's the lady that kind of keeps me on the straight and narrow. So I think a lot of it is who you're married to. And I try to work with a lot of young coaches on that, where you better have the missus better be in the same boat with you, or you're probably going to go separate directions. So
100%.
That's a huge key. I think that's a big time key for us. And then I've got a great staff. I've got a great staff of coaches that are, I can be gone. That was what scared me the most, was I have my own team. I want to make sure we're prepared, but I've got opportunities here to work with schools. We went to 9 different clinics, so 9 different sites across the U.S. got to travel to, which is awesome. But you can't do that if you don't trust your own coaching staff. Yeah. So I'm extremely blessed that I've got a great staff. I'm actually getting to take a few of them with me to some of these installs, and it's really cool to watch them and watch them enjoy getting to work with kids, in Alabama or in Wisconsin or wherever we're going, and watch my coaches get to do that as well. And then I think a lot of things is, we try to do things the right way, and I think that's kind of what I've done. And so in the business world, I don't know if I'm a good businessman at all. Like if somebody asks me for something and they don't have money, we're just going to give it to them. Like that's just kind of, I want to be a coach first, and then God has blessed us to be in a place where, if we can send my daughter to college and help pay for some of that with this, that's great. If it was free, I'd do it anyway, because it's just something I have passion about. Right, like you guys with your podcast. You know, if you make money on it, that's awesome. If you don't, you're going to have a lot of fun doing it anyway. And that's kind of the mindset I've taken into the business part of it. And then I don't know why, but God has blessed it quite a bit. Probably because I've got a really great lady behind me, kind of pushing the right buttons.
You know, Coach, I wonder if you feel like this as well. Like, I think this podcast has made me a much better head coach. Do you feel like your business has helped you be a better coach?
1,000%. I mean, think about it. Like, you know, if a coach has to present in front of other coaches, you better know your stuff. Because, like, if I'm going to go travel somewhere and somebody's paying to come hear me talk, and I don't know what I'm talking about, I'm going to struggle. So I've learned more offense and I've gotten more in depth, and we've evolved our own offense because of connections we've made and in-depth learning we've done. And my coaches, I make them speak at our national clinic. That's been a side benefit that I never saw coming. Like, I never saw coming, but I'm a much better coach now than I was in 2020. You know, 2020 is when kind of the business end for me started, mainly because there's a bigger spotlight. So you better know what you're doing. Every fan thinks you're an idiot. That don't matter. But as far as other coaches, you know, you better know what you're talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah, any teacher that's worth their weight at all knows that the more you teach something to somebody else, the better you're going to know it, the better you're going to feel more confident in every time you present it. So that's really good stuff. It's a great idea too to let your assistants to help you along with that, because it's definitely going to help them feel more confident with the material. And I think Dave and I both will agree. We both have got really solid wives that have been hung in there with us over the years, been very supportive. And you said it yourself that if you don't have that, it's probably not going to work. It's not going to last very long. But anyway, Coach, I got my next question is, I know you even said that earlier that you were a defensive coordinator before, but you also on your site, you deal with with some defense, the fit and swarm 34 defense. Could you just briefly tell us, what the principles and philosophy behind that fit and swarm 34 defense of yours is?
Sure, absolutely. You know, when I was a defensive coordinator, I was actually a forefront guy, because in Alabama, defensive linemen just grow on trees. You just stick them down and sick them, And I get here to Arkansas, and that's not the case. So we needed a way. We were playing a lot of spread offense. Arkansas, I will say this about the state, if you're not familiar with it, you have some great offensive minds that have come out of Arkansas. Gus Malzahn has come out of Arkansas. It's a high school coach. You've got head coach at UTSA right now, head coach at Missouri. Those guys are all high school type coaches of Arkansas that are now, on a big stage. And there's a lot of other coaches in the state. Offensively, they know how to run an offense, and they know how to run a lot of spread stuff. So that's kind of the elite teams in Arkansas usually run some variation of spread. So we needed to match that. And so the 3-4 allowed us to put as many athletes on the field as possible. And we've adapted it. Each year you have to adjust your personnel. But this year for us, we made the semifinals. We won 13 games. We had one defensive player over 200 pounds. One. And we're playing at a level where we're playing linemen that average 280, and 290. And so that was what we had. And we were able to be successful. A couple of years ago, we didn't have a ton of speed, but we had some thick kids, and so we could play kind of that bear front, those 4 eyes, and make everything spill. We can do it kind of like the gun tee. You can do it all from the same base. On years where you got speed, we're going to do a lot of movement, a lot of blitzes, a lot of stuff. On years where we don't have that, we can get into that 4 eye and kind of just plug and spill everything to the sideline. When we have good DBs, we're able to mix our coverages up. When we're not as good, we can play just quarters. So that's kind of the idea. A lot like the gun tee, is it fit our kids? So we put it out. Same thing with the gun tee. And when you put stuff out, man, I'm telling you, I'm nervous when I put it out. If you don't get it, you're like, man, it worked for me. So that's all I ever say. Works for us. Hope it works for you. But fortunately for us, I think there was like 12 or 13 teams that are running our defense, exactly our defense. A lot more people run 3-4, I know.
Yeah.
They're running exactly our defense that won a state championship this year too. And so it's been cool to see that grow. I've got a young defensive coordinator that's taken what we did, and man, he's made it unbelievable. And so we're starting to put out new materials in that world. He's doing a lot of it. And so obviously we're compensating him for whatever he's putting out, but he's done a great job with it. So we just try to put it out for coaches. My mind is I want to be a place where if a coach wants to learn football, that they can go to that website and then find something, whether that's offense, defense, fundraising, special teams, whatever. They can find something that can help them. Because I'm a coach, I buy stuff. I go on websites all the time and buy stuff to help me. So we want to try to do the same thing for coaches.
That's great. Yeah.
So, Coach, with your systems and your business and so forth, you're seeing a lot across the country. What trends do you see emerging in high school football? And are those trends, are they different from any trends you might be seeing at the collegiate or the professional level?
Now, and I know I'm going to show y'all might agree with me, but if I said this like to a professional coach, he'd probably kick me off the podcast. I think innovation trickles up. I think it starts at high school, and the last people to run innovative offenses are at the NFL. Like when you watch new things, if you really watch it, it tends to happen at the high school level first. Then the colleges kind of adapt to it. Then all of a sudden you see the NFL in it, and they're running. I can watch the same RPOs we're running, and they're running them, the Super Bowl or NFC Championship game. So I'm a big believer that most innovation happens at the high school level first because we have to adapt to what we have. We don't get to go cherry pick our players. And so that forces you to do unorthodox or new things. So that being said, high school level for me, I'm starting to see a lot more. When we put out tight end wing, when we first did it in 2016, 2017, not a lot of people were doing that. Now a lot of people are showing that tight end, like 21 personnel, 12 personnel. You're starting to see a ton of that in the shotgun. Like I think that's not because of me, but just because you see at the NFL level now, you're seeing it at the college level now, where those tight end H-backs, because most high school teams, you don't really, unless you're blessed, you don't have four guys at receiver. You can't go 2x2 and all four of those guys are really good. But probably you're going to have that H-back looking type kid. He may not be perfect, but he's going to be able to block a little bit and catch a little bit. He's not really a running back. He's not really a receiver. You're seeing those type of bodies. So to me, that's what I'm seeing at the high school level. There's a lot of 12, 21 personnel, moving guys around. RPO has been around forever, but it's expanding more and more every year. And you're seeing that now at every single level. So for that, on the defensive side of the ball, we're seeing a lot more man. Like I think you're starting to see a lot more man-to-man principles in the defense because you have to take the RPOs away. And the easiest way to do that is going man. If you don't go man, you got to spin coverage and hide different things. So most high school level coaches are doing some version of man more than I saw before, like teams that you wouldn't normally see. Second thing I'm seeing that we're starting to do with our own program is we're tightening up coverages even with lesser athletes. Because the old school thought was play off, make them drive the field. Play off, make them drive the field. High schools are too good for that now. Like the quarterbacks and receivers, if you give them a 5-yard hitch, they'll take it all the way down the field.
Yeah.
Or they'll throw a screen to their 5-star and you can't tackle them. So we're seeing and we're doing much more, have our corners at 3 or 4 yards, and have our safeties at 7 to 8 yards. We're trying to make you throw the vertical ball, where that was traditional if you had a lot of athletes. It was not traditional if you didn't have as many athletes. But I'm starting to see defenses that we're seeing are trying to take away the easy balls and make you go over the top to beat them. And that was, to me,
5 years ago, teams would just sit in cover 4 and let you throw screens all day long. And now they're kind of taking that stuff away.
And
So, hey, go ahead, Chuck. What were you going to say?
go ahead, Dave. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, all right, so if you're seeing more man, that's also then where more of these condensed formations are coming from, because that's making it tougher. And this goes back to learning from Homer Smith, his Homer Smith manuals. Guys, you're so young, you may not even know who I'm talking about, but he was, yeah, I didn't know, because I'm old, but Homer Smith is where we saw the first time we saw the condensed coverages or condensed sets for man coverage, and it worked great. It was really good, and now it's like I see, when I watch a lot of football, I see a lot of condensed sets, and I sort of think, like what you just said, the condensed sets are a reaction to the man coverage, which is a response to the RPO.
Right. I agree. And the tight end H-backs, that's how are you going to man them up? You're going to man them up with a corner, and then let them big body you. And so it's all cyclical. Like he says, would you say the time was a flat surface or whatever it was? It's the same idea.
Yes, sir. So, hey, I appreciate that. And look, I'll just, Chuck don't worry about it as much. He's got a lot better self-esteem, but I'm getting edgy about getting old. So I love having you on here just to sort of like, hey, I want to hear what a young guy's seeing. I sometimes I worry about hey, am I really seeing it like I think I am? But hey, I'm gonna let Chuck go ahead and hit you with the next one. Go ahead.
Well, before Chuck goes, I'm gonna say this. So yesterday I got to play flag football. I'm at the age of almost retirement for still playing active sports. So I appreciate you calling me young, because all day yesterday I was twice the age of the guys out there playing in that league. So I appreciate that.
Hey, well, I got to ask you then, because I was playing flag football probably up to about 20 years ago. I'm wondering though, have you popped a hamstring and gone home with the back of your leg purple yet? Because I don't know that you're really old and you're really playing hard if you're not walking around the next day at school with a big purple hamstring on the back of your leg. And so, tell us, Coach, did you come home with that or not?
No, unfortunately, offensively, I'm just a quarterback. So most weeks I just play quarterback because I'm 45 now and I can't run like I used to. But yesterday we had a kid not be able to show up. I say kid, he's 24 years old, but he couldn't come. So guess who was out there chasing guys around at inside linebacker?
There you go.
Hey, unlike you, I don't play hard enough to pull anything.
Hey, here's the thing. I'm going to warn you. I was playing quarterback when I would pop my hamstring. It was because I would tuck it and try to run. Even though my high school coach told me to never run the ball, I would tug it and try to run. But, hey, you keep playing that flag for both of us, all right?
I'll try not to get hurt.
There you go.
Hey, Coach Simpson, let me finish up with this last question here. I read where you raised $1.5 million for Southside, the school that you're at now. Most Kentucky high school football programs, they have to fundraise to supplement their football budget. Could you share with the listeners any advice or tips on fundraising?
Sure. Yeah, sure. No, we kind of put fundraising in really kind of two major buckets. So one major bucket is your year-to-year stuff, like you're talking about. You got to supplement things. And so we do a couple different fundraising events, and there are things that anybody can do. But a couple rules we try to abide by is we don't sell crap nobody wants. Like that's rule number one. Nobody wants to buy sheets or beef jerky sticks or whatever else. So we try not to sell any of that stuff. Everything we do is just basically going to be 100% profit. So we do the cards like everybody else does, but why am I going to pay a company when I can go out to 5 restaurants and get them to agree to do something? So we produce our own little card. We do that every year. And so that money generally, we kind of use that fundraiser mainly for our junior high kids. It kind of funds our junior high programs because those are the kids who are excited about, hey, and here we do it real simple. If you sell cards $5, you sell 5 cards, we give you $5. And so the kids are like, you're gonna give me $5. So they do that for our junior high program. We do a lot of sponsorships with companies, local companies, on T-shirts. So instead of raising money to get gear for our kids, and then we just go directly to the company and say, hey, it's $500. We'll put you on the back of a T-shirt, and we'll put your ad in our media guide, and it costs $500 to get the shirts. So we just are basically trading and kind of moving money from there to there. And so I tell our kids, say, guys, help me get these companies. As many companies you get, as many shirts as we get. And I think they didn't think I was telling the truth one year. We had 11. So we had 11 different shirts. But that money came from them, and we just kind of would hand them out one at a time as a week would go by. So there's some easy things there we'll do. We'll do signage around our facilities, like I'm sure everybody does. Yeah. But all of those, what they have in common, 100% profit. Like every dollar you make is profit. So if you go to a company, hey, we want to do a sign, but we can't do money. Can we trade you? Yes. Yeah, of course. We'll take whatever you want to feed our kids, and we'll trade you for a sign. Deal. But big money, so the other bucket of that is big money. That's facilities. That's like we had field turf, and we had an indoor, a video board. I'm trying right now to raise money for an indoor. Sorry. But that money, you have to go to big companies. And it was explained to me a few different ways. Every one of you, your school has an account with a bank. Everybody has one, and it's probably a large account. The bank can borrow, I think it's 8 to 10 times the amount of money that's in the account. So if you have $1 million in a bank account, they can leverage that $1 million to get 8 to 10 million. So you follow along with me on that. So if your school has 10 million, they're not going to blink when you ask them to give you $50,000 to put a patch on your turf, because they don't want to lose your account. So, and the other banks want your account. So you start looking at, okay, that's one way we can go use advertising. You know, we will put your logo of your company on our turf or on our video board or whatever it is. And the same deal there. You don't want to give money, but you want to trade. You know, a couple of years ago, I was riding around a nice little truck because they wanted to trade, and our superintendent green lighted that thing, and I was like, yes, sir. So you can trade there too. But the other thing you can do is a lot of your local, we try to, with the banks, we'll take a big project and stretch the payments. So you're going to do turf. Well, it's $600,000, whatever it is. That's a lot of money. But if you're doing it over 10 years, so part of what one of the bank's gifts was like a 1% interest loan. So now we're going to do it over 10 years. $60,000 a year, that's doable. Like that's a doable number. You go hit up 10 or 12 businesses at $5,000 a year, and now you can reach that. So that's a couple different things we've done. I think schools underestimate the power of advertising at their school. When you think about how businesses operate, you know, everybody wants to be the first car you buy because you're going to be loyal to that brand. So car companies, they're going to want to be on your campus. So they're going to be willing to give money to be there. Banks want you to use their credit card. They're going to be there. Restaurants want you to, they're going to be there. So I think a lot of times we undersell the value of being visible at our campus. But basically that's all we did was we took, okay, this video board is going to cost us $300,000. We're going to do it over 5 years. I can have this much, and that's how I would pick out how much it costs to advertise on there. So we're actually at 1.8 million now, and I'm working to do an indoor. So if that happens, we'll be at 3 million over the last. We're in a small, rural, 60% poverty area. So if we can do it, it is doable. We did put a book out. So I've got a book called Athletic Fundraising, and which I bought that book. Yeah. Well, basically, when I write stuff, guys, I try to just meat and potatoes, like no fluff, meat and potatoes. So here's our exact campaign we used. Here's our rules we used. Here's how we did it. And so that book could be a good resource if people are looking.
That's awesome stuff. I know that David's trying to get the indoor too. So I bet he's up there tomorrow talking to the bank that has the account to Anderson County High School, and he's going to be figuring out how to get some of that money.
That's right. That's why I got Kenny's book, so I can get that done. And it is a really good book. Kenny does a nice job, and I think there's when I've purchased this stuff, there's two things. I think it's great for an older coach like me to sort of check yourself. I think it's also a really good resource for a young guy. Kenny's already done a lot, and he's figured out the way that things will really work. And I think wherever you are on the spectrum of being a football coach, Kenny Simpson's materials are going to benefit you. They're going to help you.
Appreciate it.
Some great information tonight, Coach. We really appreciate it. We really appreciate you taking the time to share some of that information. I think our listeners will be checking into your websites, and it was really good stuff. We can't thank you enough.
I appreciate y'all having me on and for doing a podcast and giving back to coaches. I think it's really cool. Anytime I get a chance to visit with coaches that are doing this kind of stuff where you're trying to help other people. And man, if I can ever do anything to help, I will. And just appreciate y'all for having me on.
Hey, thank you, Coach. And hey, good luck to you this fall, and best wishes for continued success with your business. That's wonderful.
Thank you, sir.
Have a good night. David, we're going to move on to our tough topic, which it's who did you say the anonymous tough topic question was
well,
from?
it wasn't. He's this from George Bowen, who is he is the OC at Woodford County, and sort of cool because I went up to watch UK practice Saturday, and George was there. In fact, he gave me a book to read. I got it. I've started reading it. It's gosh, I think I have to look, but it's about Kyle Shanahan and all those guys that coach together. Sean McVay, Michael McDonald, all that stuff. So I've started looking at that. But anyways, it comes from George Bowen, and I'll let you read it, and then we'll jump into it.
It's a great question. It's
yes,
the question is new to coordinating. What are some pieces of advice we would have for new coordinators? And then, what's the head football coach looking for? Because we both have hired coordinators in our experiences. What's some of the do's and the don'ts? So you usually go first, don't you? Or I can go first. It don't make any difference.
Hey, it's totally up to you. I'm good with either one.
Yeah, well, go ahead.
All right, then. Well, okay. I think a lot of people, I think maybe sometimes you and I take it for granted, but I'm not sure everybody does. But I think the first thing you got to do is you got to get really organized. If you're going to apply to be a coordinator somewhere, you got to be organized in what you want to do. And I always go back to this. I think about like our game planning, our scripting and call sheet stuff and all that. But I think you've got to take something that is infinite. I mean, you can do anything. You really can on either side of the ball. You've got to make that finite. You've got to sort of get that under control and show that you've got a plan. I think you've got to make a detailed install plan for your coach. You've got to show him step by step that you're going to know how to put this in. You've got to be able to mesh what that best schemes that will fit what your players can do. He talked a little bit about that tonight, and I thought that was really good. And I really think that he's got a good approach, and it's an approach that we've really tried to follow, which is, yes, there is a base offense and there's a base defense, but you can emphasize different skill sets from year to year. And I thought that he talked in the gun tee. I thought Coach Simpson did a good job talking about that. I think that you've got to prep for situational football, but I've got to make your base has got to be able to adapt to those situations. I don't think situational football can be a complete abandoning of the base. It's got to be somehow connected to the base. I think you're going to have to watch a lot of video because you got to be able to execute and stop what your key opponents can do. And I think that when you build, if you want to be a coordinator, when you're building your base offense and defense, I think one of the factors needs to be who have we got to beat to win our district, win our region, win our state championship. I think that's got to be part of your plan. And I know if I'm wanting to hire a coordinator, I want to hear a guy that's going to be able to help us beat the toughest opponents on our schedule. And I think this too. I think if you want to be a coordinator, you need to talk to a guy that has built a program and has had success. Because I don't think that what works at the blue blood programs will always work well in a new situation. And I think that if you can talk to somebody that sort of had to build it, and that's why I think Coach Simpson. I think part of why his plan, he sort of had to adjust when his personnel changed and things were tough. But I think if you can talk to a guy that's built a program and had success planning your offense and your defense, I just think they're going to have some insights, and they will have had to solve some problems that there's probably a good chance you're going to be facing.
That's a great question. I mean, great answer, David. Very good, very thorough. I really liked it. I mean, I agree with everything that you said. I have a couple of things I'll add, to it somewhat. And it's if I'm looking, to be a coordinator, then obviously I want to be confident. If I'm hired to come in and be a coordinator uh, at somebody's school that's already got assistant coaches there and I'm going to be the coordinator, then I want to be confident in what I'm doing, not cocky or arrogant, though. I think there's a difference, not cocky or arrogant, but being confident you will, because you're going to need those assistant coaches, to buy into what you want them to do. Uh, they're needed. You need their help to sell that system and that plan, to the players. So being arrogant and being cocky isn't going to convince those other assistant coaches that are going to be working under you. Uh, you know, it's not going to convince. It's not going to. They're not going to buy into it if they don't like your approach. I think communication. I think if you communicate it well, then that kind of gives them knowledge, and them as in the other assistants that are working for you. It gives them knowledge and power and the confidence uh, to be able to sell it to the players. Okay, and I think it takes leadership. From this coordinator, he's going to have some leadership skills because ultimately the goal is to bring everybody on your side of the ball together, buying into the system and to the plan. You can't do it by yourself. I don't. If you think you can, then we're going to go back to that cocky and arrogant comment that I made earlier. You're not.
Yeah.
It's not going to work for you. You're not. It's not. You're not going to have any success because you can't do it by yourself. Nobody can. So
No.
I think confidence, communication, um, knowledge, leadership. I also think that skills are important. I also think that you want to keep, and you address some of these things, you want to keep it simple. If the players don't understand it, then it's probably not going to work. I think you want to use, as a young or as a coach in today's world, I think you want to use technology to help you.
That's a good
And
point.
I think it is the future. Don't fight it. Use that technology that you have available. It's out there. Um, it was simply just using Huddle to make your life easier. You know,
Mhm.
uh, would be one example of using technology. That I'm speaking of. Um, I think you got to be a good teacher. I do. It doesn't matter what you know if you don't have the skills to teach it to others, then you're going to fall on your face. I think you got to be a good teacher and be able to present material so that people can understand it. I think you want to demonstrate hard work and commitment by always being prepared and organized, as you mentioned. I think you got to have your players ready. Practice situational football, whether it's third downs, short downs, red zones, 2 minutes, etc., etc. No matter what side of the ball you're on, that's all part of practicing and preparing. I think you got to be able to do that. Fundamentals. You can't underestimate the power of fundamentals. I have hung my hat on my entire career on the philosophy that, and I truly believe it with all my heart, that it's not what you do, but how you do it. And I really believe that. I believe you can run any offense, any defense. If you focus on the fundamentals, then you'll figure out how to make it work. It's not what you do, but it's how you do it.
Hey,
And
that's why we were doing those technique practices, weren't we?
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And then David, uh, as far as the head coach, what he's looking for, I can speak for myself. You know, besides the obvious, when I was hiring a coordinator, uh, the obvious, like, does he have communication skills? Does he have the confidence? Does he have the knowledge? Besides the obvious, there were two things that I was looking for, and one of those two things is, uh, do we share the same philosophy, or at least a similar philosophy? If not, then it's probably not going to work. If he has a completely different philosophy coming in as a coordinator, then what my philosophy is, it's probably not going to work. So it's got to be similar or familiar, or similar, or the same philosophy for, I think, for it to work. And then the second thing is really big as well, is, do I trust him? I mean,
Yeah.
it's a big deal. It's a big deal.
Hmm.
If I don't trust you, I'm not going to hire you. I'm not going to let you do it. I've got to
Nope.
trust you. It's At the end of the day, it's my neck that's on the line, and I think if you're a coordinator and you're coming in, uh, it's not my job to trust you. It's your job to earn my trust
That's
as me being the head coach. And I think
yeah.
you got to earn his trust, and it's a never-ending, uh, job, continuing to earn my trust over and over and over again. And I was, privileged and honored to have some great coordinators in my career, and I trusted them for, with anything. I really would. Chris Purdue was, as good as they come. He was my right hand man. He was with me, at Boyle County, and I mean, I trusted Chris. I didn't even worry about that side of the ball when Chris was, because I knew he was going to outwork everybody. I knew he was going to be prepared. I knew he was going to be ready to go. He's going to have the players ready to go. I trusted him, and Perry Thomas. I had Perry Thomas, um, as a coordinator when I was at Campbellsville. Perry was in the same mode as Chris. Earned my trust over and over and over again by outworking everybody, by being a hard worker. Jeff Hester falls into that category. Chris Mason falls into that category. I mean, I trusted those guys, and I think that, I'd take a bullet for them, and I think they'd take a bullet for me, and
Mhm.
that's the kind of relationship that I want from my coordinators.
Yeah, hey, that's good. I feel bad. I didn't name any of my guys, and I've had some great ones. I tell you what, though, it's still without getting into any names. You sort of made me think of a couple things. Uh, when you're talking about, you got to have a similar philosophy. I agree with that. And once you're at that point, the next thing I would say is a guy that's got initiative. I mean, you didn't have to tell those coordinators what to do. They were doing the job, and I've even had to tell coaches sometimes, say, "Look, I hope in the next year I get mad at you because you did something I wish you hadn't." I said, "But go ahead and do it." I think it's easier to drag them off the pile than to drag them to it. And fortunately, like our DC right now at Anderson County, Chris Crawley Goodman. I mean, he's doing a super job, and man, I don't have to hold his hand at all. He's very aggressive. He brings a lot to the table, and basically, he just keeps going unless I step in his way and stop him. And he's doing a super job. The
And you
other
don't
thing
have
I
to
want
do
to,
that because you trust him, right?
amen. That's a great point. And then, along with that whole trust in him, I thought about this. I think one of the best things you can get to as a head coach is like, and I had this with William Harris more than once. I wasn't really quite sold exactly on what we were doing or why, but I would go along with it because I knew that he knew more about the problem than I knew about it.
Mhm.
And I would say, well, I'm not exactly sure how this is going to play out, but see, you know more about this than I do, so we're going with your plan. And man, when you can say that as a head coach, that's a great feeling.
Oh,
That
man.
is a great feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. And, um, like I said, it just kind of goes back to trusting somebody. And from a head coaching standpoint, you got a lot going on, and you got a lot of pressure on you, and it's your at the end of the day, it's your neck that's on the line. So that's why I say it's important that coordinator takes the philosophy that, hey, I've got to earn his trust every single day, and I got to do that by performing, outworking, producing over and over and over again. And when that happens, you got something special going on. And I was privileged and honored to have some really, really good guys that I work with that earn my trust all the time.
Well, hey, you're right about those guys. And I tell you what, three of mine at Mason that really tore it up. Chris Solery. I found Sean Thompson because not just so much he was in Jackie's Sunday school class. And I found and Sean did a great job. And then Larry Harris was excellent. But you're right, though, man. When you got those pieces in place, boy, it sure does make a big difference. And
Hey, David, it was a great it was a great show tonight.
yeah, it was. George, I appreciate George's thought, and I really like. I thought Coach Simpson was really good, and I thought he brought a lot to the table.
He did.
Not just from the football piece of it, but from running a program piece of it.
Yeah.
And they go together. They really do.
Yeah.
So
I want to ask them to hold on. Now, you guys hold on and listen to that historical segment at the end. Mac does a great job with that.
he does. And hey, our next episode will be Thursday, May the 1st at 7:30, and that will be our last episode of season 3. So I'll just tell our listeners. What's that?
Off season 3.
Yes, off season 3, and we're already working our tails off to make sure season 4 is going to be a good one. So we'll be back with you on Thursday, May 1st at 7:30, and as Chuck said, be sure to listen to Mac. Chuck, you want to go ahead and close us out there?
Yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. We always appreciate it. I think you got a lot of good information tonight, and we'll get you back next time. Thank you.
Sports, and in particular high school sports, are woven into the fabric of Americana. High school sports are part of the DNA of communities across the country, and that is certainly true in Kentucky. Fans know the stories of the big names, but there are many names and many stories that have been lost to history. This series highlights those forgotten heroes. Welcome to this edition of Forgotten Heroes. I'm your host, Mac Yoakum. Let's talk basketball, specifically how a boy from Kentucky revolutionized the game. John Miller Cooper grew up in the tiny Henderson County, Kentucky community of Corydon. There must be something about Corydon because it was the birthplace of Basketball Hall of Famer Frank Ramsey, the NBA's first great sixth man, and Corydon was also the birthplace of A.B. Happy Chandler, the Kentucky governor who became the commissioner of baseball, who was responsible for Jackie Robinson breaking the color barrier. But back to John Miller Cooper. John Miller Cooper played his first 3 years of high school basketball at Corydon High. One day, when he was shooting on the outdoor court at Corydon, the school didn't have a gym, a college player from Chicago happened to be there. John saw him jumping up and throwing the ball toward the goal. He found that interesting and started trying it himself. He practiced and practiced in the family smokehouse that his father had let him convert into his own gym. Little did anyone in the tiny town of Corydon know that John Miller Cooper was about to forever change Dr. Naismith's game. His senior year, the family moved to Hopkinsville, Kentucky, and he joined the team at Hopkinsville High. With Cooper, Hopkinsville was a regional favorite. The Paducah Sun newspaper said this in the March 11, 1930 edition. Cooper has a style of shooting that is particularly difficult to guard. He jumps into the air with every shot, making it a real task for a guard to get high enough to stop one of his attempts at the basket. John Miller Cooper took his newfangled jump shot to the University of Missouri. The first time he tried it in a college game, his coach told him to never do that again. At Missouri, he lettered in 3 sports. He was an all-conference performer for the Tigers, leading them in scoring for 3 years. And he also won a conference track title in the quarter mile. The Missouri students called him Jump Shot Cooper. He is in the Missouri Athletics Hall of Fame. John Miller Cooper is sometimes lost in the annals of basketball history because he chose not to go the professional basketball route. Instead, he chose academia. He earned 3 degrees at Missouri. It would only be fitting that the inventor of the jump shot would find his place in the world of a new science, biomechanics and kinesiology. John Miller Cooper is considered the father of modern biomechanics and human movement. During his time teaching at Southern Cal and Indiana University, he wrote the textbooks used in the field. Among the other books he wrote was The Theory and Science of Basketball and Basketball Player Movement Skills. He won multiple academic awards. The National Academy of Kinesiology sponsors a national lecture series in his name, and the graduate program in kinesiology at Indiana University is named in his honor. Basketball and track coaches across the country regularly called him for help with the mechanics of their athletes' performances. While he was teaching at Indiana, Bobby Knight came to him with a problem that one of his star players had trouble pivoting. John Miller Cooper surveyed the problem, and he put a lift in the toe of the shoe, and Coach Knight never had another problem with that player again. Others have laid claim to inventing the jump shot. Across the Kentucky state line in Pound, Virginia, a young man named Glenn Roberts had started using the jump shot around the same time as Cooper. But because Roberts had joined a barnstorming team, more people saw his new jump shot. Some credit Kenny Sailors or Hank Lucetti, but they really only popularized the shot on the college level, and that was years after John Miller Cooper was at Missouri. Some even credit Cuttawa, Kentucky native Jumpin' Joe Fulks with the invention of the jump shot, but really, he just used it to set more scoring records and making it a useful tool in the NBA. The NCAA, though, credits John Miller Cooper with the invention of the jump shot because his coach at Missouri was the president of the College Basketball Coaches Association, and he asked at the annual meeting if anyone had ever seen a player jump to shoot. When the delegates all answered no, it was placed in the record that John Miller Cooper was using the jump shot, thereby making him the first in their records. John Miller Cooper, a kid from rural western Kentucky with outstanding athletic abilities and a fascination for human movement, transformed the game of basketball and made a lasting mark in the academic world through the mechanics of sport. John Miller Cooper passed away at the age of 98 in 2010. Join us next time for another edition of Forgotten Heroes. Forgotten Heroes is available at most podcast outlets.